Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Callie, and since it is October, and October is naturally the time for spooky, witchy, all sorts of different fantasy creatures that you feel gravitated towards reading those kinds of books. So I figured some of my favorite spooky reads, witchy stories, just books that when I was staring at my bookshelves screamed great October. Naturally, I couldn't do this list without anything by Riley Sager, so I'm gonna go with my favorite Riley Sager book, which is Home Before Dark. This follows a young woman in a dual timeline-esque story. When she was growing up, her house was haunted. So haunted that her mother died, and then her father ended up writing this whole book about the experience. But the thing is she never believes her father. So when her father actually passes away, she finds out that he left the house to her, told her to not go there, and just avoid it at all costs. She does go there, naturally, to figure out what's real and what's not real from her memories. Because I believe she was like 5 or 6 years old when all of this happened. I loved this. The dual timeline was phenomenal. I was terrified half the time. Great, just spooky, haunted house vibes. Plus you get snippets of his book, which it felt a lot like the Amityville Horror House, with all the demonic and weird entity stuff that was happening throughout the entire house. Overall, this is my favorite Riley Sager book. I love all of his books. I haven't read the newest one, The House Beyond the Lake, Across the Lake, something like that. I haven't read that yet. I plan on reading it this month. I love every single one, but if you love haunted houses, spooky vibes, demons, twists, turns, everything you could think of, highly recommend Home Before Dark. October isn't just for spooky books and spooky vibes. There's some great romances that just scream October, and that includes the Ex Hex by Erin Sterling. The new book did just drop. I haven't gotten my copy yet, though. This follows a second chance romance, which she fell for essentially like the town's golden boy, and when he dumps her after they've been dating a bit, she puts a curse on him, and his entire life, like up until 8 years later, has been a hot mess. So he goes back to this town where she's from to try and reconcile, figure out why he's cursed, because he doesn't really put 2 and 2 together. And of course, the second he enters the town, he runs into her. And we get this second chance romance of her trying to right this wrong. She feels a little bit bad about cursing him, and he's just like, I get it, but can we not? It's a fun, cool, witchy, where both the male and the female main characters are witches. Love that aspect, has great family dynamics, and just all things hocus pocus witchy. Back on the spooky train, we have the Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. This is their newest release, and this follows a young woman who is really into podcasts. She is getting a divorce from an awful husband, and she ends up getting this cold case that is famous in her town. She knows everything about it. The woman associated with this cold case ends up bringing her in to be interviewed. Very The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Then weird supernatural stuff starts to happen around our main character, Shay, and she has to try and put all these pieces together through the interviews, through what she knows from the lore, and some outside help from a PI buddy of hers. Overall, this was so spooky, and this took wild rides. I didn't see half of the stuff coming, and I was just in it. It felt like watching a true crime documentary. I loved this book. It was very atmospheric, small town, very close-knit. Everyone kind of hates this lady because she was accused of murder but was acquitted, and just so many aspects of this that wove together to make this really cool, spooky story. Another romance. This is a more recent read. I actually listened to the audiobook of this book, and this is a vampire arranged / forced marriage story. We have Adrian, who is king of the vampires, and in creating a treaty, he asks for one thing, and that is Isolde. And Isolde has been groomed to be queen of her country. So she is taken aback by this weird vampire, but she does it to save her country, because if not, the vampires and the undead will run over her country. So she does it. And Adrian is trying to win her heart. He is not what Isolde originally thought would be, considering he's a vampire. He is very gracious and very kind to her, but it gets very dark very fast when Isolde starts to try and figure out what's going on in this vampire kingdom, what Adrian's hiding, and what's going on in his court. I got a lot of just October vibes from this. It was a great romance story, an overall fun vampire book. They are not the Twilight vampires. They don't sparkle or anything like that. They are legit suck the blood out of you vampires. Another more recent read is Verity by Colleen Hoover. This is a mystery romance. We're following a struggling writer, and she is asked to be a ghostwriter for one of the most famous mystery writers. She ends up going to this woman's house, living with her husband and their son, while she is upstairs in a coma. And Lowen, our writer, finds these manuscripts and starts to learn so many dark things about this woman and her family and her history, all while also falling for this husband who is kind of a widower. She's not quite, the woman's not quite dead. She's in like a coma, but she's like brain dead. The manuscript was so wild, and I am definitely team manuscript. I don't care about the letter. It's terrifying in a very real sense. You never really are prepared for what you read when you're getting to these manuscripts. And it's just terrifying to witness Lowen going through everything. And then Lowen starts seeing things from the comatose wife, which is even more scary. The kid is a scary little kid, very Shining-esque, says weird shit. Terrifying. I knew this was a mystery, but I didn't know I would be as terrified of a child or a woman in a coma as I was in this book. Next, I have The Near Witch by V.E. Schwab. This is her debut, I believe, and this follows a very small community that has this legend of the Near Witch. And a couple of kids go into the forest to try and find the Near Witch. And it is a very simple witch story, based off of like Hansel and Gretel and, you know, those very olden times Scandinavian stories about witches. And I thought that was a really fun take. V.E. Schwab is able to build out an atmosphere so well. I will say, this is not my favorite of V.E. Schwab's, but I love it nonetheless. Her atmosphere building is so prevalent in this. Her writing is just as gorgeous in this, and I adored it. It's super fun, super witchy. I think this can even be categorized as, I think this is young adult, but it still gives you that air and vibe of just creepy witch in the woods. The last book that I have is No Exit by Taylor Adams. This is a story of a group of strangers stuck in a safe house during a blizzard. Our main character, Derby, goes outside to try and get a cell signal and finds a child in a cage. So she has to be very wary of these strangers, as well as work with them to try and figure out who is trafficking this child. There's no cell service, there's a snowstorm, and all of them are trapped together. It is terrifying, it is horrific, it is gory, it is everything from a horror film that you could imagine. Now, I will say, this book does have a movie attached to it. It's not good. It's not. Don't watch it. Read the book instead. Much spookier, much creepier. The tension is constantly building throughout the entire book, and you never really see who the bad guy, and it's just, there's so many wild aspects throughout this entire story. I really enjoyed it. I still get kind of creeped out whenever I think about it, just because it's such a terrifying experience, and the author was able to really showcase Darby's fear and terror throughout this entire book. So those are just some books that I gravitated towards when thinking about spooky books and just fun books to read in the month of October. So I hope you guys enjoy these recommendations, as October is probably one of my more favorite months of the entire year. So with that being said, that's going to be it for today's video. Please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We post videos every Tuesday, Thursday, with the occasional Sunday, and I'll see you guys in our next video. Bye!